Hey, it's Lacey Broussard, and this is the Multiorgasmic Mama podcast. From sex and motherhood, birth and relationships, communication and intimacy building, and Taoism and Tantra, we explore topics such as self-care, self-pleasure, body image, jade eggs, the feminine cycles, creativity in business, and modern spirituality. The Multiorgasmic Mama is a place to come for true stories and transformational advice on how to be a mama and a multiorgasmic woman too. Hi, mamas. This is Lacey Broussard here, and today we have special guest Lauren Venable. She's an energy healer and a mama, and she is going to talk to us about her business and her practice and her product line that she offers. And we're also going to talk about how being a radiant mama is all about an inner game today as well. So Lauren, could you tell us a little bit about your life and what you do and who you serve?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a mom, and having my little boy is actually the whole thing that brought me into all of this work. I married my high school sweetheart. We got pregnant, we had a baby, and my whole life just in the best way and in the worst way. I had already lost myself in my marriage, so I had no idea who I was. I had no idea how to take care of myself. Taking care of myself had never been a thing for me. It had never been important. My whole life had revolved around how to make other people happy. And then I had this baby, and he wouldn't sleep, and he wouldn't gain weight, and it was a lot. I had so much anxiety that I was a nervous wreck to the point that I couldn't even do the easy things. Like, I couldn't keep up with the laundry. I would stand in my closet to get dressed, and I wouldn't even know. I couldn't make the decision of like what to put on my body. And I would just burst into tears in my closet over getting dressed. I couldn't decide what to cook for dinner. And so I just wouldn't cook dinner. And I would spend my whole days like in this state of like paralysis of I had no idea who I was. I had no idea how to cope with the massive amount of stress I was under. And so I kind of just froze there. I put on a lot of weight. I got really depressed, and my mind was just, I was so anxious. I don't even know how to describe it. I was in a well, like I could not be reached. And so obviously my marriage started to fall apart around that. We already had our issues before we had a kid, but definitely that was a catalyst. I didn't know how to support him, and I didn't know how to support myself. I didn't know how to support this child. And I had no idea that it was because I was so deeply disconnected from myself. I blamed him. I blamed my husband, which only made everything so much more miserable. And I didn't speak up to people about how much my little boy overwhelmed me. And so it was like this secret for 2 years. And then I finally started getting some counseling, and come to find out my counselor was an energy healer. And so she really brought me back to me. She guided me back to myself through helping me figure out who I am and finding that inner voice. And so now my passion and my work is helping moms through that same journey. And I guide and support them along the way to just rediscovering who they are and what makes them feel whole and happy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. So that's how you got into energy healing then? Did you have any sort of postpartum depression or postpartum issues?
Yes. So my postpartum depression was intense. And I never told anyone about it. And so I would have these flashes of, what if I left him outside? And it was a cold winter. He's almost 4 now. Like, it snowed like twice that winter. And it would flash across my mind, and I'd be like, who just thought that, And I was like, the last thing I could do is tell somebody, or I'd think about, what if I put a pillow on him, And I was horrified that I was having these thoughts, and I already felt like I was failing because I was trying to breastfeed and he was losing weight. I was trying to give him formula, and it was making him sick to the point that he couldn't even hold it down. I was making decisions that already weren't mainstream, that I felt really scared about making in the first place, but they resonated with me, but I didn't believe in myself enough to not let that doubt. So I was in this perpetual state of wanting a voice to follow, of like, So I would read these natural books and be like, okay, well, I have to do this, otherwise I'm fucking up my kid for life. And then I would read the mainstream stuff and be like, oh no, I have to do it this way or I'm fucking up my kid for life. And there was all this pressure and I had no idea who to listen to. And I couldn't trust myself because I was thinking about leaving my baby outside, you know? And then when I would kind of start to open up to people, it's like, well, you know, you're really uptight or you're making things harder than they need to be. And it was just validating over and over that I was doing something wrong, that it was actually something wrong with me. So I kept it really quiet. And then it just turned into this generalized depression that eventually brought me to get help. But when I was in the thick of it, it was unidentifiable as postpartum depression. I really, really thought I was just couldn't handle being a mom, that I was like a really flawed human. And I felt really alone in that. And I thought that the problem was that we didn't have enough moms talking about how hard it is to be a mom. So when I started my work, I was like, we need to be honest. We need to be talking about this stuff. Why is no one talking about how hard it is? I mean, my kid didn't sleep through the night till he was 2. I went 2 years with less than 5 nights of full night's sleep. I was losing my shit, you know? And I thought the problem was that there weren't enough moms admitting that they were losing their shit. But the problem was that there weren't enough moms taking care of themselves and supporting other women to take care of themselves. The idea of a mom having needs and desires and being a whole human and being allowed to give time and attention to herself, that is the real problem. We don't have enough women talking about that. So I'm excited that we're here talking about it today, because that's 2 more people talking about it. It's so important.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing about your postpartum depression story, because it is definitely a shadow piece to being a mom, is that we don't talk about it. So everyone thinks that what they're going through is normal when it's not at all. And the statistics for women that get postpartum depression and don't report it are so scary. I think it's like 80% or something that are not treated. They don't even talk about it. You know, you go to the 6-week appointment after birth and they ask you, you know, are you feeling depressive thoughts? And of course, they're like, I don't know. Like, what do you, it's like, how is that a screening question for postpartum depression?
And how do you tell your OB, actually, I did think about leaving him outside last night so that I didn't have to nurse him all night on my like bleeding nipples, you know?
Yeah. Totally.
It's not really a place where you feel safe admitting that, you know?
Oh my gosh, I know. I couldn't admit. I had it with my second as well, because I had those thoughts that, you know, they're not yours, and you just wonder, like, where did that come from? Like, I know I would never think that, or I would never do that, but it is a really scary thing, and I hope that as many women as possible hear the truth from other women about what postpartum depression is really like. So thank you for sharing that. So you said that you felt like you lost yourself to motherhood. So I'm really curious, how did you find your way back to yourself?
Yeah, so it's been about a 2.5-year long journey so far. Once I started getting the counseling and doing the energy healing, I remember my counselor asking me, our goal was to figure out what I wanted in my life, in my relationship, because I actually went to counseling to fix my marriage. I didn't even go to counseling for myself. I put on the why you're here on my paperwork to fix my marriage. And she's like, you know, you're here by yourself, right? And it was the best thing ever because I needed it. I thought the problem was him and our marriage, and I was doing all this stuff. I was bending over backwards, killing myself, serving everyone around me. So of course I was like, I'm doing things right. I'm not the problem. And then I went to counseling and realized I had no idea who I was. I had no idea that I was disconnected from myself because I was that disconnected from myself, you know? So I remember sitting on her couch and she's like, so what do you want? And I just like froze. I was like, what do you mean? She's like, what do you want in your life and in your relationship? And like, well, I want my family to be happy. I want Gus to grow up happy. You know, I want Zach to be happy. She's like, what do you want? It took us 3 appointments, 3-hour-long appointments before I could even logically answer that question. And she's like, so So finally she's like, well, what do you like? What do you need? And finally she's like, what's the first thing that pops into your head? I'm like, it's stupid. I was like, the thing that's coming into my head is the thing I need. Makes no sense. She's like, well, what is it? I was like, I need to listen to music more. Because in college, like, music was a huge part of my life, but I didn't even listen to music anymore because I wasn't a person, so I didn't do things that people do. I'd made formula and took care of a kid and changed diapers. Like, that was what I did. Mm-hmm. So she's like, well, start listening to music again. I'm like, this is dumb. How is my need listening to music? Like, this really doesn't make sense to me. But I got in the car that day and turned on Pandora for the first time in probably years. And this song came on, and the first lines is, hello, my old heart, how have you been? How is it being locked away? And I was just like, like lost it. I sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. And in that moment, I realized that I had totally lost myself, and I was grieving it hard. It was difficult, that realization. I understand why I spent so long pushing that realization away and making other people wrong and making my circumstances wrong, because it's a really hard space. It's scary to dive into that. Oh shit, I lost myself. Yeah. But I'm so glad I did it. It was the most amazing decision I've ever made.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think the best place to start is just starting small. And with the first thing that pops into your head, I always tell people, if the first thing that pops into your head is drinking smoothies in the morning, or going for a walk, or talking to a friend, laughing, like, do it. And you don't have to know how to have that big breakthrough. Like, you don't have to know how to fix yourself. All you have to do is learn to listen and trust your inner guide and do it. So if your inner voice, your inner guide tells you, go turn on the radio, do it, because you're going to hear the perfect song to bring you exactly what you're needing to get you through that transformation that your soul really, really wants, that your heart really wants and desires. Like, you don't have to know the way, because there's a piece of you that already knows. You just have to tap into her and start to trust her.
Yeah. So how would you suggest tapping into her for someone that's like you were and so disconnected, like you had no idea? How would you suggest that a mom who would be listening to this could connect and do that?
Yeah, if you're that disconnected like I was, I definitely suggest getting that support. Having the support of another woman going through this was the most valuable, game-changing thing. Like, I have had constant support from a woman who is further ahead on this path for the past 2.5 years, with maybe like a month or so off here and there. And it's been something that, like, I've really had to, like, it's been scary to say that I need this level of support, but especially in the beginning when you are, I remember every time I was asked the question that my inner guide should answer, I don't know. I had the I don't knows for like a year. And so I think having someone who can hold your hand and reflect yourself back to you, and can kind of hold a mirror and show you your truth, and who can guide you through this process, is so valuable, even if it's in the form of like a Facebook group, or someone's podcast that you listen to regularly, or a book that you start to read. I really, really suggest just committing to creating that relationship with yourself, because it does take a lot of work. It does have to become a way of life. And I recommend getting that support and really just daily trying to connect. Even if you get, I don't know, for 6 months, 6 weeks, a year, just keep trying. And I promise that voice will get louder and more clear.
Yeah. Thank you. That's awesome. That's great advice. Definitely having the support of other women and a sisterhood has been key for my journey as well. So I'm curious too. So I'm all about internal radiance and being a radiant mama, and obviously this is called the Multiorgasmic Mama Podcast because it's all about breaking the taboo between sex and motherhood, and how you don't have to give up one to have the other. And so I'm curious about how you really ignited your radiance and passion in life as a mom, because I know that you said that you help women find their passion after having kids. If they feel like they've just lost themselves completely, you help them reignite that passion. So how do you reignite your passion and your radiance? How have you done that?
Yeah. So that was one thing where I had to start small. I had to start with like learning how to find pleasure and enjoyment just in my daily life. So in the foods I ate or the activities that I do, because this is kind of my belief on it is if you don't know what you like to eat, which I didn't, if you can't like be brave enough to ask for like spaghetti for dinner, if that's what you're wanting, you are not going to feel comfortable asking your partner to do that thing they did that time that you really liked and you're hoping they do it again, but you're too embarrassed to talk about it. You're not gonna. Like, so if you have to start with taking a bubble bath because you want to and asking your husband or your partner or whoever to watch the kids so you can take a 30-minute bath and just be in your body for 30 minutes, that's a beautiful place to start. If you start with I remember for myself just putting lotion on at night, so I would start and just feeling my hands on my own hands was totally new, and it felt like, so once you just kind of can rub your hands together, and you can even try it now if you're listening or watching, and when you're like really aware of what your hands feel like on each other, and then you can start to like massage your arms and just start to get to know yourself and what you like, because if you don't know what you like, you can't ask for what you like. And so for me, tuning into my radiance came second. I had to tune into my like self-love to believe that I was valuable, because it's so scary as moms. We feel like we have to take care of everyone and everyone else. So as moms, we're terrified to spend that time and energy on ourselves, right? We're so afraid that people around us are going to feel abandoned by us or like we're selfish. And so we don't do it. But I promise you, if you like dive in and you're willing to invest time in your radiance, so if that means going for a walk or making a smoothie or starting a self-pleasure practice, doing daily breast massage, whatever it is that you start with, just know that your light and your radiance and your wholeness is a much bigger gift to your loved ones than your selfless service ever could be. Like ever, ever, ever. People want to be around women who are lit up and who are turned on, because it's important. When you are whole and when you are radiant and when you are when you love and value yourself in that way, you start to love and value everyone and everything around you in a whole new way. And that is actually what nourishes the people in your life, is your light, not your service. Because when you're lit up and you're turned on, you serve without effort. You know, it just comes natural. Like, oh, I'm so happy and so full. How can I help you feel the same way? And like, we're not.
Heck yeah. Love it.
Mhm.
Yeah. So radiance and being lit up from within is also it seems to come after you start to tap into self-love, like you were saying.
Mhm.
And once you start to tap into self-love, you start to tap into self-worth, and the self-worth is really what gives you the courage to ask for what you want, and the courage to step up and say something and use your voice, the courage to start the business that you've always dreamed of having, the courage to speak your message to the world. And I know now that you're not with your partner anymore, right? And
Right. Yeah. So that was one thing and so a lot of people can be nervous to follow my path because they're like, well, your path led to getting divorced. But I've seen so many women, I've guided like so many women through this path who aren't getting divorced. Instead, they are closer and happier than ever in their relationships. But yeah, for me, that was totally part of my path. I was very unhappy in my relationship, and like I mentioned in the beginning, I was making him wrong. I blamed him for a lot of mutual problems and my own stuff. But yeah, so about a month after I got my Reiki attunement, which was kind of my energy healer journey beginning, I don't know how to how to describe that, but once I like became an energy healer and committed to this path of really committing to myself and finding my self-worth, we separated a month after. And at first I was like devastated. This was the worst thing ever. I was horrified about it. But there was a piece of me that felt so much relief. There was a piece of me that knew this is what I had been desiring. But I did not think it was going to be like a long-term thing. I thought we would separate, figure out our stuff, and then be back together. 2 years later, we're still separated and working towards being divorced. But it was the thing that I knew in that moment. Okay, at that point, I developed so much trust in my path, and I was only like 6 months into my journey at this point. But I had learned to trust that inner voice, and that inner voice had told me I was going to be okay. But I had to choose. This is either going to break you or crack you wide open. And so in that moment, I chose for it to crack me wide open. I was like, in this moment, I am choosing to let devastation be the thing that builds me up and creates me into the person that I want to be. Because the person I was when I got separated was not someone that I enjoyed. I did not like that version of myself because it wasn't true. It wasn't me. And so every time something has happened along the way, anytime there's conflict or a new level of heartbreak comes up, I was able to choose again in that moment, okay, this can destroy me or it can build me up. And I think that's been one of the most valuable pieces of this journey, is knowing that the really scary, really painful stuff is the stuff that is you're going to look back and you can cry, smile while you talk about it, And the pain of it doesn't really go away. You're never like healed and done, So this morning I'm dropping Gus off at school and I'm like thinking about my postpartum depression and realizing that I needed to talk about it today. And I'm like feeling all the feels, all the emotions are welling up around it. And so I didn't just heal that piece of me and it's gone and I'm better now. Yeah. This journey really gives you tools to manage your emotions and to deal with whatever life turns your way. And it's not about not experiencing pain or not experiencing things that can dim your light. Instead, it's about seeing an opportunity to totally wipe out your light and instead choosing for it to make your light brighter and remembering that that's going to be the outcome.
I remember when I started diving into my own sexuality and my hangups around sexuality, it was the most terrifying thing. I'm a jade egg teacher, for those of you that don't know. And when I first got a jade egg, it literally took me 3 weeks of like looking at it, trying and like attempting to use it like at least 3 times before I could even use it. Yeah. And what's the funny thing is that once I finally did, it healed so much around my sexuality and the guilt and shame around my body and my sexuality as a whole. And it was literally the tool to help me heal in that area of my life. So it's so true that most of the time the things that scare us the most are the things that are going to bring us the most healing. So I love what you were saying about that.
Absolutely. I know I'm a beginner on that journey. I've done a lot of the heart healing and now we're in like the sexuality healing. For those of you who don't know, I've been working with Lacey and she's amazing. So if you're considering it, do it. But I'm in that point now where when I talk to women and I tell them, do the scary thing, do the hard thing, do the thing that terrifies you because it's going to be amazing. I'm also telling myself that, like telling my mom I'm on a podcast called the Multiorgasmic Mama is going to be interesting, but it's so damn important because this has brought a whole new layer. Like before I started doing this work, I was experiencing so much love and so much like gentle gratitude from my life and people, more compassion, but I wasn't experiencing a ton of happiness, a ton of joy. But once I started diving into this work and started healing around my sexuality and my self-worth, like that is a huge thing that's coming up in this. And so once I've started doing that, yeah, my life has gotten a little messier on the outside, a little more complicated, but it's also so much more filled with joy. Like I do feel like I have all of this love and I'm cultivating all of this joy to share with people, that it's so important. And part of me feels there are days where I'm like, oh my God, why am I doing this work? Why am I working on this next piece? Like I'm happy enough at my heart. Like, why do I have to go down this path? But then I see the women who, like, when I'm lit up around these women, it inspires them and they start working on their own light. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's why I have to do this, because it's so important. We don't have enough women who feel valuable enough to have a light, much less to like shine that light out, you know? And it's scary to be one of the ones in a community where it's not super encouraged, and to be the one to say, this is scary as shit, but I'm going to do it anyways because I know it's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm super grateful for you and for your work, and that you've started this podcast, and that you're being the brave one for all of us. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know, Lauren and I live in Louisiana, in Lafayette, Louisiana. It's a very conservative place, so our work it's pretty far out there for a lot of people to be able to handle. So just for any of you that live in places like this, we feel ya, we know your pain. But we're here doing it anyway because it's so important. And you know what you were saying about reaching, feeling love, but not really feeling the joy. That's what I found as well. Like, I didn't even understand what people would talk about when they would describe a state of ecstasy, like other than, taking drugs or something. Like, how do you tap into ecstasy sober, like,
Yeah.
how do you get there? And then, like, I've been on my own sexual journey for 3 or 4 years now. I'm like, oh my God, well, that's how, the thing that we fear the most is the thing that really roots us and brings us back into ourselves, and that allows us to experience those high vibe emotions like ecstasy and multiorgasmic bliss and all of these things. So yeah, it's
it really is. It's so true.
So if a woman today that's listening is wondering what happened to the passion in her relationship or her sex life after having kids in particular, what words of wisdom would you have for her?
Yeah, and that's like so many women I know. So I'm like,
right.
Yeah, my biggest piece of advice would be just start getting to know yourself. Don't make it about your relationship at first, because your healing has to start with you. Your journey has to start with you. Your pleasure has to start with you. And so I know this may be uncomfortable advice, but starting a self-pleasure practice, or even if it's just daily breast massage, I feel like that's like a safe place to start. For me, that felt like a safe space where I didn't feel like I was having to unravel too much taboo. I was like, okay, I could put my hands on my breast. I can do this. It was still scary and still uncomfortable. But I think that's a really great place to start, because when we start wanting to fix our sex lives, I feel like it's a lot like wanting to fix our relationships. And we go into it with all of this focus still placed outside of ourselves. It's still placed on our spouse and their experience, or our co-experience, our experience together. But when you focus on yourself, you're naturally going to bring that into your relationship. You're naturally going to bring that into the bedroom, and that will change the joint experience. So it is not about looking outside of you and fixing what's outside of you. It's really about diving in and focusing on yourself and being a little selfish, because you're human. Like, you're a person who has needs and desires. And the more you can tap into that, the more you'll be able to bring that to your partner. And the more you'll allow them to have needs and desires, which alone will make them happier in your relationship and in your experiences together.
So if you could give women one piece of advice on being a multi-orgasmic mama, what would it be?
It would be to just take that fear by the hand, let it sit next to you, because it feels like you're on a cliff. When you're about to say, yes, I'm a valuable person who deserves pleasure or love or whatever it is you're trying to bring into your life, we feel like we have to deal with the fear first, and we have to get rid of fear, and then we can jump. But it's actually all about letting fear sit next to you. And I like to picture her as like a little girl who's like sitting next to me like, I'm too scared, we can't do this, this isn't safe. And just letting her know, I know you feel that way and it's totally fine, but you're coming with me. I'm going to hold your hand and I'll keep you safe, and we're doing this together. And just once you give that fear space to be there, it's a lot less scary to actually take the leap. And so I know it's so scary to say yes to yourself. If that means starting your sexual healing journey, if that means diving into your heart and dealing with healing your heart, it's terrifying. I get it. But do it anyways because it's worth it. That's my biggest tip is just do it anyways. It's so worth it.
Yeah, totally. And I get so many women that come to me and they want to heal their relationship. You know,
Mhm.
they want to want their partners. They want to have desire. They desire, in other words.
Yeah.
And they come to me thinking that they need to work together as a group, and I always reflect the same thing that you just said. It's not about him, it's about you, and it's about your own blockages to allowing yourself to experience whatever it is that you want to experience. And then, you know, once you get to a certain point, you can bring him in. But
Mhm.
99% of the time, women that come to me to fix their relationship, it's not about their relationship, it's about them.
Mhm.
So once we
Right.
bring them enough, then we can bring in the partner and you know, deal with any remaining issues. But most of the time, they're non-existent. So
Mm-mm.
I love that.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of times we expect someone else, like if we're not feeling pleasure in our life, we're like, well, why isn't this person doing enough for me to be feeling pleasure in my life? If you feel unsupported, you feel like the people in your life aren't supporting you well. And so, of course, like every single woman that has come to me has been struggling with her relationship and wants to fix her relationship also. And the journey never, we rarely talk about their partner or their actual relationship because the people in your life and the circumstances in your life are not the things that are making you unhappy or keeping you from experiencing pleasure. It's your own blocks, like you said, your own blocks to being able to experience what you desire.
Yeah.
And so dive in. It's so worth it. Dive into you and your stuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Lauren. And I really appreciate you and taking the time to do this with me. And if you have any, do you have any upcoming launches that you're doing?
I do actually. So I have I am in in the works of developing a breast massage oil that's going to be used for either breast massage for yourself or baby massage. So it's kind of like this co-beneficial baby mama massage oil, and it's going to be full of like really nourishing oils and some beautiful herbs, and that is going to be coming out in the next I'm going to start sharing more about it, but it'll be coming out in the next few weeks. And then if anyone is ever just looking for general support, I do have a Facebook group where I talk about a lot of this stuff and kind of guide women through the ups and downs of everyday stuff, and also share about energy healing and how it can help. So if anyone is interested in joining us there, it is called the Balanced Roots Community. BALANCED, roots like a tree, ROOTS, community.
Very cool. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. And I'll
Thank
include
you so
those
much for
links.
having me. This was amazing. You're amazing.
Thank you.